One day there was a rich man, a very wealthy man. He was the wealthiest man in the village. But all his life, even though he was a good man, he had not said his prayers. And the day came when Allah made it so he was unable to say his prayers. But he knew life was short and his days were numbered. And he wanted to do something to make up for all the days that he had not said his prayers. So he went to the road and found the busiest road going through that village. And to that road he had brought large jugs of water. And he would stand along that road. And any traveler that came by, if they were on a horse, he would stop them. And he would not even allow them to come down from that horse, and he would give them to drink in the heat of the day. And anyone who would walk by, he would stop them, and again he would give them water until their thirst was quenched. And he would stood there the whole day, through the cool of the night and the heat of the day. But still he felt it was not enough. So he knew that in that village there was a man. And that man was a thief of shrouds. Whenever someone died, whether it was a child or whether it was an old person, he would go to the grave and he would steal the shrouds and sell them as a living. Well, that rich man thought, maybe if I stop him that will be enough. So he called that thief of shrouds and he said to him, "How much do you get for one of those shrouds you steal?" Because everyone knew what his profession was and what he did. And he says, if it's the shroud of a poor man, I get 1 pound. If it's the shroud of a rich man, I get 3 pounds. Even they're worth 20, 30, 40 pounds. So the rich man looked at him and says, "Listen, if from this day on, every time someone dies, you will not steal their shroud, I will pay you 20 pounds. So, from that day on, the thief left the shrouds alone, and any time someone died in that village, he would come to the rich man, and the rich man would pay him 20 pounds. But everyone's days are numbered, and before long the rich man died. And everyone was out for his funeral, preparing him for burial. And also, the thief of shrouds, who now had a substantial sum of money, was out there seeing his benefactor buried. But when he looked at the funeral, and he looked at the dead man, and he looked at that shroud, something in his heart started pounding. And it was the most beautiful shroud he had ever seen, and he went home after the funeral, and he said to his wife, wife, something is the matter. I'm restless. What can I do?" And she says, "What is it? Why are you restless? We have enough money to live for a long, long time, thanks to our benefactor." And he says, "Yes, but. She says, "You're not thinking of what I'm thinking you want to do, are you?" And he says, "I can't help it. I can't help it. It's beside me." Well, that night he went out. He walked through the village, and he walked to the graveyard, and he went looking for the grave of the man who had died. And all over the graveyard he looked, and he says, "I saw him buried myself. Where is his grave? Where is his grave?" And he couldn't find it until suddenly he came to a door, and in that door he saw a window, and that window was lit up. And as he looked through that window, there was a room, and he looked in that room, and in that room he saw the man, his benefactor, who had died that very day. And there beside him he saw a group of angels. And as he looked further, he saw that in the center of that room was a fountain. And to the left of that fountain he saw a fire roaring up. And on the right side of that fountain he saw a throne. And as he looked, he saw the man who had fed the people water and who had not said his prayers brought to that throne. And he was dressed in silks, in the most beautiful of silks. And then, suddenly, it was morning. And the call for the morning prayer went off. And he was taken off that throne. And his silks were taken off of him. And he was thrust with one mighty thrust into that fire. And there, for the time that the prayer went on, he burned in that fire. And as soon as the prayer was over, the angels took him out of that fire and put him in that fountain. And there he was restored until he was as good as new, and in the most beautiful appearance that he had ever had. And he was put on that throne and dressed in the most beautiful of silks. And this went on until the next time of prayer. And just then, when the dawn came, an angel came to that window and came up to him and said, "Who are you and what do you want?" And he said who he was, that he was the stealer of shrouds, and this man was his benefactor. And the angel said, for the time he did not perform his prayer, every time a prayer comes, he is put in this fire for the period of that prayer. For the time that he fed water to the people, he is put in this fountain and restored to the best of his appearances. And for the rest of the time, because he saved the death from desecration, he is put on this throne and dressed in the best of silks and given the most wondrous of rewards. And then the window closed, and from that day on, the thief of shrouds repented and lived the best of lives.